In this video, we're back with another episode of live performance coaching with Megan Marlow and the traders from her Growth Hub private mentorship and trading community. And again, we're tackling real trader challenges, like a skepticism as to how important trading psychology is really for your bottom line results, wanting a strategic way of scaling up so that you can avoid blowing up at the same time, being too trigger happy at the market open, and also how to stay motivated when you're putting in that daily grind, but the results are a long way off. I'm Créde. I'm a high performance and trading psychologist, and I've been supporting elite performers since 2007 in professional sport, trading, finance, and business to help people master their mindset for peak performance and a richer life. If you're an experienced trader who is done with surface level trading psychology solutions and trying to follow ad hoc advice, then register now for my free trading psychology intensive training. This is the most comprehensive and in-depth free training that I have ever released. In it, you'll get a 12,000-word PDF downloadable book chapter. This is an excerpt from my published book with renowned trader and trading educator Andrew Aziz. You'll also get a 50-minute on-demand video training showing you how to actually apply these principles in your own trading to move the dial on your bottom line results. You'll also get a mini curated library of my most powerful and most popular free mental training audio resources. This is a library of meditation and affirmation resources that will help you to actually rewire your subconscious mind and your conscious mind for trading success. And if that sounds good, you can get your hands on all of this by following the link in the description box below or in the pinned comment. And with that done, let's jump into the session.
We did get some questions in, so that's great. We've got some questions to go through. We've also have some questions from last time to cover that didn't get covered. And you're in good hands with Créde. She's a fantastic high performance psychologist I have had the pleasure working with, and I'm really happy that you guys get to have another session with her. So I will let her go ahead and kick us off. If we have time at the end, we will just kind of do some like off the cuff questions, anything that's maybe come to mind. Alrighty then, I will let Créde kick us off. Please use the chat if you've got questions or you want to provide feedback. Raise your hands if you want to jump in. And without further ado, Créde, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. And hi to everyone. Thanks for turning up in, I know what is kind of summer vacation time. So appreciate everyone being here. And thanks for the questions again. So I know that last time we weren't able to get through all the questions. And I think, is it Steve? We didn't get to yours. And we wanted to go through that one first. So just make sure that to get that answered for you, because, you know, it was a pity we didn't get to it last time. So do you want to jump on, talk us through your question, and we'll take it from there.
I will. I wasn't expecting to get the chance to chat, but I believe the question was around not giving psychology enough credit and just blaming everything on my discipline. I can't remember. I don't know if you have that.
That's a good summary of it. Yeah, pretty much. So you're just saying that it was about preparation and yeah.
Definitely what I wasn't getting at was that there's no value in psychology, because if there was no value in psychology, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. But I guess for myself, you know, lots of times I'll read people say, you know, it's 80% psychology, 20%, you know, system. I'm definitely on the side where it's like you have to have an edge, and like psychology is part of it, you know, more on that 20% side. But I tend to, again, I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but my question is am I downplaying the importance of psychology too much, in the sense of I tend to look at things in hindsight. Even Megan, your question this morning is like, well, yeah, Steve, but like it's always in hindsight, right? And so I look at something and it's just, well, if I had just stuck to my game plan and just been disciplined on what sorry, I'm kind of botching this because I don't know my question, because I wasn't.
No, you're perfect. It's like, I know exactly what you mean. So, and it's a really good question. It gives me a chance to clarify something that might come up in another way. So
I don't want to use psychology as a scapegoat. It's simply, you know, like, I guess that's maybe I'm just not giving it enough credit, and I need to think about the psychology more rather than just being so matter of fact.
So, well, what I think it is that probably psychology is not actually that well defined. Like there's kind of an idea of that people know what trading psychology is, but when I find that actually when I'm working with people, or even what people are reflecting back to me sometimes in terms of what they've heard from, trading psychology advice, it's actually that people are sometimes misunderstanding what it is, and it's kind of nebulous, or it can seem nebulous, so that makes sense. So what I would say is, first, to your point about, first you need a system, I would absolutely agree with that. The psychology only becomes important when you have the technical skills dialed in and a strategy that is profitable if you were to execute it like a robot. So I will even be very upfront with people. If you're a beginner trader, complete beginner, and you haven't got those things dialed in, then it's not really worth your time working on the psychology at that point. It's the point when you have all that dialed in, you have the rules, you have the strategy, you know what you should be doing in the market. That's where it becomes critical. Because basically then any time where you know what you need to be doing and you're not doing it, that's a psychology issue. So, I think it is important to just speak to that point. It's not like, oh, if you do mantras and affirmations and no technical practice that, you're going to make money in the market. That's not true. It's just not true. But I think what you're saying is, you were saying that you didn't want to make psychology the scapegoat. To me, that even that in itself is probably speaking to a deeper pattern in you, where you're hard on yourself, perfectionist, you want to, get things right, you don't want to be wrong, all of that kind of stuff. So, but just parking that to the side for a second, I do think psychology is critical. Obviously, it's my job, it's what I'm about. But I think how you approach it is what's most important. And so I'm big on treating psychology like a system. So it's not just a matter of kind of thinking that, oh, if I do some work on my confidence, then I'll suddenly get better results in the market. Or if I, try and sharpen my focus. It's like a system, in the same way that your technical trading piece is a system with rules and you have to learn all the different parts and click it together. It's the same on the psychology side, but people often don't realize there's that level of depth and nuance to it. They also don't realize that it can be that structured and practical and actionable. So the way that I teach it, it's like a jigsaw puzzle piece, and you kind of have to know how to put all the pieces together. And then when they all click into place, that's when the result is your mental edge, like doing what you intend to do in the market.
For
So
sure.
it's probably, I would say that the psychology, if you know what to do and you're not doing it, yes, psychology is at play. But it's not just as simple as saying, I didn't prepare properly, even from a mental and emotional perspective. Like, that's part of it, yes. But there's a whole jigsaw puzzle of things to be working on that will produce the result of you sticking to your plan. And obviously, that's a much bigger topic than I can fully speak to today on this session. But what I would say is that probably the slight hesitancy around considering it as important as you might be coming from just not being clear on how to actually work on it in a very practical, structured way. And once you understand the kind of system behind it, then you can start actually turning it into something very tangible, very concrete, that you just pick off, bit by bit, and you build. But to make it very simple, at the end of doing all of that work, you end up with a mental training routine that becomes something like a gym routine for your mind, that you're just practicing, day in, day out, week in, week out in your trading. And that's strengthening your mindset, your resilience, your ability to perform under pressure. Is there any other part of that? It's such a broad topic that I'm just giving you a very high
No,
level answer.
I think you nailed it. Like, one of the things that I think was very beneficial that Megan did with me early on was just kind of like that daily checklist and report card and stuff. And I've thought a lot about getting back to that now that I'm 2 years into this. And even same thing as refining my rules. Like, I created rules at the very first, because it's like that's the first thing you should do as a trader, is create rules. Well, you don't even know anything about trading, and you create all these rules, right? So it's like they need to be refined a couple of years in, once you've actually learned things and you know a little bit about yourself. At least I find that, and I've been thinking a lot about going back. Like, Megan and I opened it up 2 weekends ago, that old score sheet that we did, just to kind of refine that and button it up, because there was a little bit of that, like a little bit of the psychology and just overall general health built into that. And I think what it was for me is just, when you start trading, same as everybody in this room, it's like you're reading as much as you can, you're trying to absorb as much as you can. I think the best thing I ever did was ignoring a lot of the noise on like social media. Thankfully, I don't like social media anyways, so it really helped to ignore that. But I love to read, right? And so reading so much that I put way too much, to your earlier point, which I think is a great one. I put way too much on the psychology side before I even had any idea at all how to trade, right? So it was, I had no strategies, no nothing, like even still just building that stuff out now. So to your point, I think kind of slowly working that back in now as you develop your edge and you develop that trade book, I'll find it as again, that accessory, like that 20% is a critical factor, but it's not everything, right? And I really
Yeah.
felt it was everything out of the gate, which yeah, kind of led me to my question. So yeah, I think that's a great point of um, I think maybe traders focus on it a little bit too early, right? Like you go to a trading summit when you've only been a trader for 6 months, and there's a session on psychology, and it's like it's not really relevant to everybody in the room, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's because you
but
haven't
nobody's going to say that. Nobody's going to say, "Hey, put your hand up if you've been trading less than 6 months," and if so, don't listen to this.
absolutely. It's not like,
Yeah,
I mean, it's useful to have the information, but
it's
when
useful,
you're
but
learning a
it's
skill, any skill, you need, like, it takes a lot of cognitive effort. It takes up a lot of space in your brain. And so that's why it's not going to harm you, like, learning about it. But if it's at the expense of being able to focus on the key thing at that point, which is the technical thing,
yeah,
then it's not beneficial to you. So that's why I'm very, kind of, I would place a lot of emphasis on doing it at the right time and then making sure that you do it. I mean, you can't leave it out then. After that point where you know what you should be doing, you absolutely need to be working on it. But also then not trying to, sometimes the other mistake that people make is they think that if they read all of the psychology books, watch all of the YouTube videos, do all of that, that somehow by osmosis that will produce results. And it's just not true, because that's just brain dump of information. Some of it's good, some of it isn't. There's a lot of, like, not to knock it, but there is a lot of advice out there that isn't actually from a performance psychology perspective particularly correct.
yeah,
So it's about quality, not quantity, really.
sure.
And I'm not saying that my way is the only way. There's lots of good trading psychology educators out there, but kind of being discerning as well about the information that you take in is helpful too.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for a great question. So then next, and this was from the questions for this session, we had Wrong, is it? Am I saying that right? Hi, how are you? Rather than me reading out your question, I'm just going to give you the opportunity to ask it in front of the group, and then we can take it on.
Sure, thank you. So my question is wrong. So my problem is I have difficulty in sticking to my A plus trades. So I have like my trade book, and it can clearly define what setup is A plus, what is like maybe a B or B minus. And I really want to just take the A plus setup. But during live trading, it's difficult for me to follow that. When I see a B setup pops out, I also will end up taking them. Especially if it's the first setup that happens after market open. I usually just take whatever setup happened first. But if I have taken some trades, then I see a B setup, I'm less eager to take it. I find I'm very FOMO in the very early in the morning, and as trading session goes on, have some trades, I will become less FOMO and be more picky about my entries. Yeah, that's my struggle.
Okay, so I might ask you a few questions just to dig into that slightly deeper. But from reading your question and hearing that there, what I would say is going on potentially is that earlier in the day, you're more influenced by the psychology side of things. So that could be that you feel an urgency to make money quickly. So it's like the attachment to the P&L basically is stronger earlier in the day. But the piece I want to figure out with you is what's happening later in the day. So you could definitely say that if you're feeling that urgency to jump into B plus B minus setups early because you just want to trade, like you just want to get a trade in, it's either that you have a subconscious attachment to the P&L. So it could be about the money mindset piece. It could be about being right, proving yourself as a trader, all of those kind of deep subconscious patterns. But it just in very simple terms, it means that you're being driven by the P&L as opposed to the execution of your trading plan. Like you're prioritizing the P&L more in the morning than the execution of your trading plan. And the ideal in trading for every trader all the time is to prioritize the execution of your plan. So if in your plan you should only be taking A+ setups, then that's, what you should be executing at the start of the day, in the middle of the day, at the end of the day, or the session. But what I'm just interested also then for later in the day, is it that you become more hesitant? Like, so say if you've lost some money, then you're sort of risk averse, or is it that you settle down and you're able to be discerning and stick to your plan? Because they're two different scenarios later in the day.
Yeah, I think later in the day, it might also be related to my P&L mind, because usually after I've taken some trades and because it is B trades, so usually it end up with a small red or small green, and my psychology will be like, I don't want to take a new trade to make a drastic change to my daily results, and I'm going to kind of just accept I'm having a small red day or a small green day, as long as it's not a big red day. If it's a big red day, I might take one more, right? Try to recover it. And if I had a good trade, like a bigger green trade, I would definitely not want to take more trades. So yeah, later in the day, it's like also P&L influence on me. Actually, maybe you don't want to take more trades. But when I start fresh, which is a P&L being zero, then it can be anything. I'll be very eager to take a trade to see what happens.
So, but either way, that's okay. So that's clarified it for me. So your attachment is to the P&L. You're prioritizing that over the execution of your plan. It's just manifesting in different ways depending on what that P&L is, kind of, and what time of day it is. So you're trading not to lose. Like when later in the day, you're actually trading not to lose as opposed to trading to win. You're trying to protect everything. Like if it's a small red day, don't let it get worse. If it's a small green day, be happy with that. Like you're kind of entering into a state where you're thinking more in terms of the potential threat or loss, or it's a more fearful state, if you could call it that, or maybe anxious, rather than the ideal state, which would be just purely neutral. Is my setup appearing? Trade it according to my plan. If it could be a big green, it could be a small loss, but I executed my plan properly. And so you're not adjusting your actions based on how the P&L is changing in the day. You're just, each trade is a blank slate. You're focusing on the execution of your plan, and then that produces the outcome of whatever P&L at the end of the day. So that's the mindset that you want to try and be trading from, rather than the attachment to the P&L. And if you want to troubleshoot that, again, this is a much deeper fix. It's not something that you could fix with one answer to one question, but just to give you a general direction of what you'd want to be looking at. One is you'd want to identify your what subconscious belief is driving your attachment to the P&L. Is it about scarcity money mindset? And you might know this, as we're talking now, it can take some digging, some kind of self-reflection. Is it about being right? Is it about proving your skill as a trader? All of these are common reasons why people attach significance to the P&L over and above just, the pure kind of money side of it. Sometimes people are attaching their self-worth to it. So as the P&L is changing, it's having this deeper effect on you at a subconscious level, rather than just kind of staying at the surface and just trading like a robot according to your plan. So you want to figure out what is that attachment to the P&L that's happening at the subconscious level. And then also a useful thing to do would be to use performance goals to track in a very measurable way how you're actually sticking to your trading plan on each trade. So for example, having a performance goal, if it's setups is the issue or one of the big issues, you would create a performance goal that says, for example, 90% of all trades taken met my A+ setup criteria. So rather than saying success is, a profitable green day, you're actually saying success is 90% of trades that I took met my A+ setup criteria. So it's a different focus for success.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I think I'm really attached to P&L because when I look at my trading career and if I want to judge myself how successful I am as a trader, it's basically looking at how much money I made or what is my trading stats, right? Like my win rate, my profit loss ratio. So it is how much money I make versus how much money I lose in all my trades. So it is P&L based. And if I talk to other people or even talk to my family members about my trading, I mean, because they don't understand technical. I just mentioned how much money I made today or how much money I lose. That's like the most common language to communicate among other people. So yeah, that's mainly been the thing on my mind. Even though I feel like maybe in trading I wasn't thinking about this, but but I guess I'm still thinking about this. Um,
It's always at
yeah.
that subconscious level. Like it's to be honest, every single trading psychology challenge comes back to over focus on the P&L. It just might be for different reasons for each person, and it might manifest slightly differently. But just to also make the point, it is a, you know, trading is about making money. We're not discounting the fact that making money is a measure of performance in trading. It is. It's same in sport, like winning championships, that's a measure of performance. It's when you start identifying your self-worth or your identity with that money or with those results, that's where the problem is. So you can absolutely say, I'm improving my trading because I made, just throw random stats out, 1 million this year as opposed to 20 grand. Like, that's a signal that I'm getting better as a trader. That's true. It's when you start like counting your self-worth by your trading results. That's the problem. So if you feel like you're less of a person, and again, this is all happening at a subconscious level, you feel less confident because you had a losing month. You feel like your confidence and your self-esteem is dropping because you've had a tricky month in the market. That's where the problem is. So we don't want to shy away from the fact that there is a bottom line metric in trading and it is profit. That's fine. It's a performance-based business, but just you have to be really careful not to identify your own self-worth as a person with your results.
I'd like to just jump in really quickly. Some like a baseline that I would question you with wrong is like even just thinking about like if you put yourself in the moment of the day is about to open and your P&L says 0, what what feelings come up for you if that just stays at 0 for the rest of the day? Like, what does that bring up in you? Like, does it cause like frustration? Does it cause like you to feel like you've failed, that you weren't like weren't productive? Like that like just even that question I think can get you into your subconscious to be like, what's really going on? Because you haven't lost money, you haven't made money. It's just a baseline of 0. And if it stays like that the entire day, what like feelings come up for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I I mean I wake up very early. I have to do a lot of prep to be ready for open. I would say if I end up not taking trades and have a flat P&L, I feel like maybe I haven't done much, haven't done the work I'm supposed to do. So yeah, so that's why another reason at the open, I feel like I have to take some trades. It's just like a have to do my job. That could be that's another thing in my mind.
That's actually really telling. That's a great question, Megan. And that's something that a lot of traders have, like a subconscious pattern where they equate productivity, and not just traders, but where someone equates productivity with self-worth. So it mightn't even be the money that you're equating with self-worth. It could be the productivity. It could be, I associate hard work with being a good person. With kind of not being lazy, all of that. And they can be patterns that were built in childhood or installed in us by our parents or our culture and so trading is different. Sometimes waiting is trading. Sometimes that's the best thing that you can do if there's no setup available to you. If the market's acting strange, sometimes the best thing you can do is sit it out. But our minds are wired to think that that's not how we work, like we should be actually physically doing something. So I think that's probably a good indicator of maybe where the subconscious patterns are. Do you have
Yeah,
anything to add
great.
on that, Megan? Sorry.
I'm good with the discussion. go back to think more on that.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that was great feedback. I love that. And I think wrong, like maybe there's just a little bit of some deep work to do. And hopefully this gives you a little bit of foundation to start off of. And then
Yeah.
I know that you and I have a one-on-one next week, so we can dig into it a little bit more if you need to.
Thank you too.
Awesome. Thanks for a great question. So then I'm just going to go on to the next one, which was Lisa. Is Lisa here? I don't see her. She's not. I know she's not on camera, but I don't know if she's here on. Is she
Yeah,
here?
she's here. She's just not on camera.
Okay.
Lisa, are you able to talk? Looks like her mic is on, but I don't hear her.
Maybe on mute.
She says she just messaged in Discord, so she's talking. We can't hear you. If you could just double check your settings to make sure that your mic is set up properly on Zoom.
Hello?
There we go.
Hi, Lisa.
Oh.
How are you?
Sorry about that. I forgot with Zoom, I have to switch over to a different setting. I apologize.
No worries. So you had a good question on some tips for the mental game of sizing up. So do you want to just elaborate on that?
Well, I've been trading with the same size for quite a while. And just some tips on when is it a good time to start increasing it? And should it be done in like just really small increments so that from a psychology perspective, it's not overwhelming? Like just some tips around that. And then tying it into maybe some visualization exercises just
Yep.
to keep me sort of in the right mindset.
So
If I do have a little, a little bit of a setback because I'm increasing my size, that it's not going to wreck me. So keeping the mind in the right place as well while I'm doing it. But also some tips on like the process of actually doing it and doing it well.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm gonna I don't have it to hand here, but I'm gonna send it to Megan after and you can share it. I've actually done a YouTube video and blog post on this exact topic. So I explain it in detail. I give the high level answer here, but I literally the step-by-step plan is in those resources. So I can send it to Megan to pass on to everyone after. I think it's called the phased approach to scaling up. So scaling up without blowing up. But it's interesting that you're asking, about the process and also about the visualization. For me, the thing that's most important from a psychology perspective here is having a systematic process. The visualization is like a nice add-on if you want to kind of enhance the other work you're doing. But the absolute most important thing for either transitioning from sim to live or scaling up at any point is to have a strategic plan for it. So you want to make sure that you've created an entire plan around when and by how much, et cetera, to scale up away from the market. So it's not like you just kind of sit in front of the screen on a day and you're thinking, okay, I feel confident today, I'm going to increase whatever. Because as you kind of alluded to, when you increase your size, you're increasing the potential for psychology to trip you up because there's more pressure. So at every juncture, like a step of stairs where you move up in size, you're also scaling up the pressure. And your psychology has to be robust enough to handle that. So you don't want to make a massive jump because if you do, your psychology is not going to weather that jump. So really high level, what you can do is actually set out a plan. So you kind of define maybe 4 phases. You could define more than that, but I recommend starting with about 4, where let's say you're trading in phase 1, you're trading X amount of contracts. You decide that you've got your performance and process goals. So this works I'm trying not to get like too like spraying information from a fire hose here, but assuming that you're tracking some sort of performance goals. For example, like the goal that we talked about earlier, 90% of trades taken met my A+ setup criteria. Let's say that's something that you're really working on. So you might then define a certain like milestone where you get to pass to phase 2. So it's not time based. It's not like I'm going to trade with this many contracts for like 2 months and then I'll move on, because that's not actually a measure of performance. You could smash your goals in 2 weeks and be ready to move on, or it could take 6 months to move on. And so doing it based on time is never good. So rather what you do is you would set up performance criteria for yourself that you have to pass like a checkpoint to move to phase two. And phase two would then represent an increase in size, contracts, whatever. So it could be, for example, something like in a period of 6 consecutive trading weeks, 4 out of those 6 weeks are profitable from an actual monetary perspective. And I hit my performance goal, so that 90% of all trades taken met my A plus setup criteria on 4 out of those 6 consecutive weeks. And if I pass that, then I get to move to phase two, and you've already predefined what amount you're going to increase by. So again, keeping in mind, you don't want to make a massive leap. And then you can move to phase two, and let's say you're adding in more contracts, and then you start trading that, and suddenly you find that actually it was too big of a jump. You're feeling a bit shaky. All you have to do then is just revert to the previous phase, maybe kind of give yourself a bridging thing. So you say, okay, this time, if I can meet those goals for 3 weeks in a row, I'll move back to phase two. And so it just becomes this objective measurement of success. It's not based on emotions. Oh, I feel like I'm ready. It's not based on time. I've been doing this for 6 months. It's time I increase my size. It's actually based on this kind of pre-planned structure that you've created for yourself, and that's very measurable. Does that make sense? I know that's quite like a tech or detailed thing to try and impart in just a Q&A, but does that give you a sense of how you might approach it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And the key thing is that's a scaffold, but you'd have to put in the exact details that make it relevant to you. And you'd have to decide, by how much you would scale up and whether it was 6 consecutive weeks or maybe it's 10 weeks. You might make it progressively harder in each phase because you're going to be, risking more money in each phase. But this whole process is mapped out like in a kind of structure way in that blog post and that video. So if that's a lot to kind of take in now, but that, if you want to go back to that resource in your own time, that will probably help.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to watch that. And I'm an Excel worksheet queen, so I think the structural part of it makes sense to me for sure.
And even the tracking will be helpful for your psychology anyway. And then, like, if you're doing that, the thing you could do with visualization is imagining yourself, like even creating a visualization script where you're imagining yourself successfully executing at that level with those contracts. But to be honest, I think the much more impactful thing to do is actually create that phased approach to scaling up in the first place.
Okay, thank you.
I love that. It almost like, as you're talking about it, Créde, it makes me think of like a video game and having to level up in a video game, right? Like you have to beat the boss before you can go to the next level, or you have to achieve X amount of coins before you can go to the next level. And it's like, what does that look like in trading? And sometimes making things into a game makes it feel like a little bit less work too. So if you think of it as like, I'm just trying to complete all of these so I can go to the next level and level up, then like it gives you like you said, like a scaffold, like a structured approach to moving on.
Yeah.
It also makes me think of like my range trading, where the stock could be trading in a range for a while and then it steps up into the next range and I'm drawing those boxes. It's kind of that, like if I visualize it, that's essentially what I'm doing.
Yeah, totally. You're moving on to the next box and then you're moving on to the next box.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Nice. I know we were going to talk about visualization in a bit more depth as well. That was a request, but I just want to get to also Cody's question. Did that answer your question, Lisa? Was there any other part to that, or is that?
That's perfect. Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay. Cody had a question then. That was the last one that was submitted. And then we said we talk about visualization a little bit more. Cody, are you there on camera?
Yep. How's it going?
Hi. How are you? So do you want to talk through your question?
Yeah. So I read a paper that was pretty interesting. It was about how when we visualize ourselves in the future and try to make decisions that could potentially counter our current comfort, we actually look at our future self similar to how we would look at somebody else. And so if you're choosing to not eat fatty foods today, in your mind, foregoing that in the present would essentially be like someone else being skinny in the future. So it kind of has a similar feedback loop, which I thought was interesting. So thinking on that, I just wanted to kind of ask about how you've helped folks or what things to do to maintain the long-term vision and forego short-term gain. So for instance, like maintaining the understanding that your probabilities and your setup will eventually get you to your monetary goal, but then not breaking current day because you feel like you can get green on this next trade, even though it's not in your playbook, sort of thing. So it's that constant balance between the future self versus the present self, and maintaining that for the long run, I guess, is kind of my thoughts.
So that's a really interesting question. I haven't read that paper, come across it, but I can understand what you mean in terms of it's nearly like, delaying the gratification. It's nearly like it's not even of benefit to you, that the more the impulse is to serve the current you now rather than put in the work that the future you benefits from. So there's a few different answers to this, but I would say actually the most critical is it is in the present moment. I'm going to contradict myself. We can build a future vision and use techniques to tap into that. But what we're actually trying to do is flesh out that crystal clear vision in so much detail that it becomes something that you can then map onto behaviors and then try and practice those behaviors in the present moment. So if the future version of me that, and I'm going to throw I'm looking at my vision board right here, has, a luxury massive villa in the Algarve, what would she be doing? How would she treat this problem? How would she face this challenge? What would she do in the morning? Would she, I don't know, eat ice cream for breakfast, or is she going on a treadmill because, she's out in shorts and t-shirts all day or whatever? So you're getting this real clear picture of who the version of you is that has achieved the success, but it's for the purpose of then like backwards engineering the behaviors that get you there. And then the second piece is about practicing those behaviors intentionally in the moment. So there's two approaches. Just to simplify it, there's two things that I would suggest doing here from a practical perspective. One is that the goals, sometimes when there's a gap where someone, has the vision, knows what they want to achieve, but they're finding it hard to actually kind of motivate themselves to do the right thing in the moment. It's because their goals they haven't broken them down to a day by day process and performance goal that gives them instant feedback and a feeling of confidence and success and progress. So if you only have goals, for example, of, I want to make, 50K from trading in the next quarter, again, just pulling random numbers. That's all well and good, but that doesn't give you something to focus on today that you can actually say, other than money, that you can say, oh, I really did well. Let's say it's a day, like we spoke about earlier, where the market doesn't present any opportunities. In the first scenario where you don't have any other more short-term goals, you're just going to feel like you're not, measuring up against your goal. You feel like you're that bit further away from that goal for the quarter. Whereas if you have process and performance goals that are mapped onto, a trade by trade or a day by day time frame, then you can actually say, well, I stuck to my process today. There were no A+ setups. And so tick, that's, today was a really good green process day. I stuck to my plan. I feel confident. I can see my discipline getting better. And then you get that dopamine hit of I'm making forward progress. It's when you don't have those smaller goals, you only have the bigger outcome goals, that you don't have anything to develop confidence or a sense of progress against. And that's why it becomes then, it's your willpower isn't going to kind of cut it. It's not enough to make you stick to the plan. So I would say the first thing is actually having a really robust goal setting framework that supports you in developing more confidence and motivation and a sense of progress. And that helps you stick to your plan. So that's one piece. And then the other piece is, yes, you can use visualization to tap into that future self. You can use loads of techniques, but one of the techniques that I teach in my course is about creating your lifestyle vision. So you actually create an imagery script that is describing your current self as if it was happening in the moment. So it's kind of like a chapter from a book, and you're writing it. You give it a like start to the scene. So it might be, I'm waking up in my whatever bed, looking out on whatever scene, blah, blah. And then you write your kind of a day in the life of you from that perspective. And you make it detailed, you make it really vivid in terms of evoking emotions. So you're describing what you're seeing, smelling, feeling, probably building in your trading day in there somewhere, but also maybe talking about what you're doing after trading. You're taking the kids to the lake to go swimming, like whatever. And then you record yourself reading that script and then you listen to it like say 3 times a week. So it's something that you're actively programming, you're actively practicing and rehearsing in your mind. So when you listen to the script, you're trying to really vividly put yourself in that scene. But that alone is not enough to build the discipline that you need in the present moment. You also need that practical scaffold of those like goals, that kind of framework that's really robust as well. And then those two things together will keep you moving towards a future vision, really flesh out who that person is, like what that identity is, what are the behaviors that they have, but then the goals kind of keep you anchored in the present moment.
Sorry, I'm just writing it all down. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I really like that second piece. It did come up in the paper as well. It was like for long-term savings, they did that facial aging, and the people who saw themselves older put more money into their retirement as compared to people who didn't, which was super interesting. So
wow, that's so,
really
I'd love to read that paper actually if you have it.
I'll find it and I'll send it to
see.
Yeah, I'll send it over for sure. Yeah, super
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, no, that's really great. Yeah, I think for me, my my daily goal framework isn't and then I can do the recording. I had a recording, but it was more from like hype yourself up sort of thing, as opposed to like a mindset shift on where I'd be if I maintain. So okay, great. Thank you so much. This is super helpful.
No worries at all. Great question. And this isn't a plug. I'm just sharing information. In my course, so my Go Deep to Level Up Your Trading program, we literally walk through each of those things step by step. So like there's a whole module on the goal setting framework. It's that level of depth. We talk about how to build an effective imagery script, and it's done in a systematic way. So we were talking about systems earlier. Like to me, there's a very clear structure in how you approach your mental edge. Like you don't start with the imagery because that's not the most important piece to start with. You need to, like building a house, you need to set the foundation, then you build the walls, so there is a kind of step-by-step process involved. So that's, if anyone is wanting to go deeper, and like I said, this isn't a hard sell, you can take or leave it. I have loads of other free stuff on YouTube, which might be helpful as well. There's one about connecting with your future self, which I'll send to Megan as well as a video to kind of talk you through that. But if anyone does want to go deeper, then that's literally laid out like a blueprint. Like it takes you through all of the different pieces in order. But the other thing about connecting with your future self, if you're trying to build that vision, is sometimes you can just do a visualization. So not like an imagery script where you're practicing it 3 times a week, but a visualization to connect with them. So for me, it would be, I would go and meet that version of myself in the villa. She opens the door and I have a conversation with her. And I'm saying, well, what did you do to get here? What did you stop doing that led you here? What is life like? What are your mornings like? I'm looking at what she's wearing, and so you can actually kind of, it's a funny way of saying it, but you can sort of in real time, like understand, connect with that version of you and get a lot of information that can help the present you. So I have a YouTube video on that as well.
Perfect. No, I appreciate that. I'm gonna have a look at both for sure. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a million. I
just want to add something. I think that like just to really highlight that Créde said, which I think is super important when it comes to visualization, is she mentioned like invoking emotions. And I think there's like often a disconnect with people when they try to do visualization, where you're like visualizing this house and this giant trading fund and like just this like amazing life. But the reason why I think it can often be so hard to do the things necessary to get there in this present moment is because when you do that visualization, you're not really tapping into the emotions and the feeling of it. And that's kind of what anchors you to that. So there's like, everybody understands kind of like traumatic feelings. And most of the time they're negative, but you can have like a positive trauma where it's like so like elating and just insane that you'll never forget it. Like it's the best moment of your life. Like it's the most amazing kiss you ever had or something, right? And you can do that with visualization too. Like you imagine yourself in that moment and what does it feel like? Like you feel free, you feel safe, you feel happy, you have energy. It's like all of this stuff. And once you feel that, it's a little bit easier to anchor yourself to it, even now being in the present moment. So you're able to be like, I really felt that. Kind of the same way when, like, if you have a traumatic experience, you can re-feel and relive that experience time and time again, even though it's happened, 10, 20 years ago. So if you can think into the future 10, 20 years and anchor yourself to a very, very strong emotion that you'll never forget, it's much easier in the present to then be like, yeah, I'm only going to trade my A+ setup because I know the feeling that I'm going to have when I'm at this point 20 years from now, because I felt it so, so deeply. So I think really making sure that you feel how you will feel in that moment is important, because it's not our minds that get us there, it's the feeling that gets us there. If you feel excited about something, you will drive yourself to that location. If you don't feel excited about something, you're going to stay right here in comfort because that's all you know and that's what you're used to. So feelings are super, super important. And the second thing that she talked about was kind of the goal setting. I think is also something that I see a lot of traders bump up against, which is you envision yourself on the top of Everest, but you haven't broken down how you're going to get to the top of Everest. So you have to take like a moment to sit down to say, what's the one small thing I can do that gets me there today? And that might be I put my shoes on and I go for a hike, right? And starting to put yourself in those moments of smaller goals that lead to the bigger weekly, the monthly, the daily, like the yearly, the 5 year, the future, right? So you have to do that, like, kind of step back and that breakdown of what can I do right now in this moment or this day to put me in that position, and what am I going to feel when I'm there? And that's you're kind of like then bridging the gap between the distance from where you are now and where you are now, right? So it's bridging the gap between the two.
That's a really important point about the emotions. I just want to add on to that as well. One of the reasons why visualization, mental imagery works, and this is coming from the science of it, is that when you imagine yourself doing something, it activates the same neural pathways as if you were actually doing the thing in real life. So there's been loads of different studies, where they had, like, one of them, they actually put people's arms in casts and then they got them to imagine strengthening their wrist, like doing exercises with their hand. So they couldn't move their hand, but they found that at the end of the whatever period, like it was 3 months or something, that the people who had imagined it relative to the control group had actually strengthened their wrists or their arms, like through just visualization. Same with, they've done it with like learning piano, they've done it with basketball free throws. There's like a ton of studies that show it. So if you are practicing mental imagery and you're doing it in that way that, you're imagining yourself, like even to Lisa's point about imagining yourself consistently trading at that higher level with bigger size, your brain doesn't differentiate between that's actually happening or that's happening in my mind. So you're actually programming your brain to take those actions, and that it's familiar when you get there. So that's also why it's so effective. But it's the emotions that are evoked as a result of going through that imagery that actually creates the impact. So Megan's totally right there.
Yeah, and something interesting with that is, like, kind of when we think about moments in trading where we think about like a loss we took or something, like you can really feel that, right? Like you can really feel that loss you took. It hurt. You messed up and you didn't follow your rules, and the way that you respond to that, because those feelings are so embedded into you, is that when you felt that, it's very real in your brain. And so you start to repeat almost like a video of like, I've lost, I'm losing. It starts to build up all those fears. And then you repeat the habit and the pattern time and time again because you've been visualizing it subconsciously because it happened to you, right? So you took this loss, you didn't follow your rules. Every time you don't follow your rules, it repeats this pattern. And so you just kind of turn yourself into somebody that doesn't follow their rules because that's all you think about, because that's the highest anchoring emotion that you have. It's like, I messed up. So the more that you can anchor yourself to an emotion that has a stronger feeling and visualize it, like I take my A+ setups, I follow my rules, I get my pre-market prep done in time, and you anchor feelings to that, then you can start to put yourself into a different habit cycle. And kind of like what Créde is talking about, where, people practice music or basketball or whatever it might be. And they, instead of thinking like, I lost the game or I don't know how to play the piano, they're thinking about how I can play the piano and how I can win the game. And it starts to put them on that trajectory to actually do that thing. And I will say from experience, I was out with an ankle injury for like 6 months, I think it was a couple years ago. And the entire time I was out with an ankle injury, you guys know that I love to trail run. And every single day I would envision myself running. I knew the trails, I'd done them before. I just put myself in that trail run and I would do it in my head. I would sit and I would just close my eyes and I would run for 30 minutes in my head. When my ankle healed and I got done with physical therapy, I was back on the trails like I had never left the trails and even PR'd some of my runs. So it really does work because normally if you have an injury, you're going to be out for a while and you're going to be much slower when you start again. But I hit that trail like I had never left it. So it's super, super powerful. And I really recommend you guys do it. And so just like anchor yourself to the emotions, put yourself in that environment. You will soar, I promise.
So just one follow-up question to that, because I can understand that. Positive or negative emotion anchoring? Right. So I mean, just in the sense of, right, like disgust can be a very motivating source.
How did I know you were gonna go here? Because
I'm just, that's just the one question I have. I personally like the positivity component of it, so that's what I default to, but wanted to pick both your brains on just that component, because if you're anchoring an emotion, what emotion?
I gotta let Megan go first, but I think my face is saying exactly what I think. But Megan, you go first.
I can understand how like anger and disgust can make you change behavior, right? Like you get so disgusted with yourself that you're like, I'm not doing this anymore. But ask yourself, like that can be in a moment, like I'm so sick of taking losses, I'm just not going to do it anymore. That's disgust, that's anger, that's like I don't want to be this person anymore. But how likely are you going to be to run towards a future version of you if that first future version of you is something you're disgusted with? So the future feeling and emotion, I think, needs to be positive. It's got to be something that you want. Like I feel really good, I feel happy, I feel safe, I feel financially stable, whatever these things are. That's going to help drive you to that. Feelings of like disgust or anger can help separate you from what you're doing now because you just get so sick of like this behavior, right? But that sort of disgust behavior, I mean, I'll ask you, is that something like is that a version of yourself that you want in the future? Would that drive you towards a version of yourself? Like, are you just disgusted that you're making millions of dollars? Like, how gross.
No, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it is. And I can understand that, right? It's like the AA model where you're disgusted with the present, but you have to have a vision of the future. So I'm with you on that. It's just more like that transition, right? Because if you get in that feedback loop of consistently not driving the right discipline, you got to get over the hump. So, but that makes sense. I fully agree. I was just, I was going to ask the question.
I know, because you like to put on your like system of a down and like your rock hands and just like battle it out when you've had a terrible day and just live in your disgust. But like future you should not be that person.
No, I got you. I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
1,000%.
Anything you want to add, Créde?
Yeah, no, I definitely, like my face was instantly going, no, don't do it. I would never tell someone to focus on negative emotions ever because it's priming all your associations, all your subconscious patterns. Like it's sparking this whole chain reaction in your body that why would you program that? I do understand that sometimes people find it motivating. And there are studies about people being motivated by negative self-talk, but I mean, if you've got control over this, I would always go for the positive. Because you want like that, you want to anchor the positive emotions, and also being motivated by fear or disgust or all of those kind of negative emotions is a thing. It can be fuel. A lot of people set out on a journey to prove somebody wrong, to prove society wrong, and that can be a really strong fuel. And a lot of high performers actually do have some element of being driven. If we're just going to separate it, we'd say fear or love, because everything falls into one of those two categories. So fear could be fear of scarcity of money. I don't want to be poor again. I want to change my circumstances. It could be, fear of being seen as worthless. So I'm going to prove my dad wrong and I'm going to make a career out of trading and he wanted me to be an accountant or whatever. that fuel can take you to a certain level, but at a certain point, it becomes something that holds you back. So you can use it as an impetus if you have to, or if you find that you're actually, you can identify that you're already doing that. It's okay. But at some point, it's always going to benefit you to move from being motivated by joy, love. So when I say that, what I mean is exactly that, like that future version of you where you imagine making millions and you have this beautiful life, you're able to do whatever you want, you can also give to charities, you can do whatever. And that's a kind of more love-based, expansive motivation fuel to be operating from. So I have seen a lot of high performers be in this space and switch over, like consciously make the switch to being motivated more by joy, love. And it massively improves not just their trading, but also their work-life balance, their self-compassion, all of these other pieces of the puzzle. So 100%, I would say always positive emotions.
Perfect. Thank you. I dropped the papers in the chat, but I will also link them in the Discord so that we can look at them.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll send it to Créde as well. I know
Are there any
up...
tricks? Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask, are there any tricks to make visualization easier for those of us who are not as in touch with our emotions and have a really hard time kind of visualizing things that aren't as solidly in front of us as others might be able to?
That's a great point. So actually something important to consider or to bring up is that some people aren't visual, like some people don't have the capacity to form mental images in their brain at all. And then there's a spectrum of some people are highly visual and some aren't. So if you find that you're trying to use visualization and it's not working and you're getting frustrated, it could actually be that your brain, it just processes information differently. You might be a person that processes things in a much more verbal way. And then something like affirmations or like writing out a script and listening to it could be more effective for you. So it's not like mental imagery is the be all and end all for absolutely every person. If you're someone that's not so in touch with your emotions, that actually doesn't necessarily matter. So let's say there are two different things. So you could be someone that doesn't process things visually like that in your mind. Perfect. Focus more on verbal based solutions. Whereas if you do have a capacity to form mental images, so if I said, imagine the front of your house, how many windows are on it, and you could like visualize it and count them, then it's not an issue with visualizing. It might be, that you're kind of more blocked from your emotions. But the thing is, if you write a really good script that's really detailed in terms of the imagery, I'll explain that in a second, it will just naturally evoke the emotion. So it's not like you're sitting there trying to be in touch with your feelings. It's like if I said, imagine that you're going to the lotto office with your ticket in your hand is shaking because you've got so much adrenaline because you've just won the lotto. Nobody knows. You've bought yourself a cup of coffee on the way in and you're trying to act like you're normal, but you're walking towards the lotto office with that ticket in your pocket and you're afraid that someone's going to rob it, but you're so excited, your life's about to change. You're starting to like feel these emotions because you're describing the scene in such detail. So it's not that you actually have to force the feeling of the emotions. If your script is good enough and vivid enough, they will just naturally occur as a result of like listening to it.
I'm lit after that. Like what you literally just said, I could like feel like my emotions just like starting to build. I'm like, I won the lottery.
Screw trading. We'll just all imagine that. No.
Just pulling up the Powerball numbers right now.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I appreciate it.
Okay, I know we have hit the hour mark, so I know, Créde, you need to go and I want to be respectful of your time. Nikolai, I noticed that you put your question here, but that your camera and your mic aren't working. So we'll save it for one in the future. If Créde wants to join us in the future, we would obviously love to have her back. We'll save that question, and then that way we can all kind of end on time here today. So thank you so much, Créde, for joining us today and for offering your advice. It is always much appreciated. We absolutely love having you join us. So thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me. Great questions.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.